Hi HR Nation, welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. Today we have a special guest. We're joined by Martin Lindstrom, who is a branding and culture expert, New York Times bestselling author and founder of Lindstom Company. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Chris. I'm fantastic despite all this doom and gloom going on in the world right now.
Well, it's really good to speak with you, and I'm really excited to discuss your new book, the Ministry of Common Sense: How to Eliminate Bureaucratic Red Tape, Bad Excuses, and Corporate Bullshit. So excited to talk about this one. What inspired this new book?
A lot of bullshit. I mean, when you work in corporations across the world, as I do, and believe me, I'm seeing most of these companies from within. I realized the issue is the productivity is going down. I mean, in the good old days, you would be able to create a solution fairly quickly. The customer would be happy. The staff would be happy. And then suddenly something happened within the organization, which suddenly was slowing things down. The happiness of the staff went down, productivity went down, and people just got more anxious. And that sign just became worse and worse. And I think the best example of that was when I was interviewing a very large bank. I was asked to come in and fix their problems. And I went to the 29th floor. And then I went into this room where there was a person from compliance sitting. She was responsible for that region in the world. And I said to her, just for fun, so tell me, you must have been creating a lot of rules throughout life. It was a joke, right?
Yeah.
And she said, absolutely, look at this. And she put down a phone book-sized manual.
Oh.
And it said from A to D, and there were 6 other manuals up there, right?
Oh.
So I flicked through these 300 pages while I was talking to her, and I landed at a rule which said, whenever a contract has been established between our bank and the client, always ensure that the client is faxing the contract with a real signature on. And I said to her, do you have a fax machine? She said, no. I said, so why are you asking all your staff, the 150,000 staff, to do the same? She said, that's not my problem. I produce rules. Do you want me to delete the rule? If I'm deleting the rule, I'm destroying my life work.
It's painful.
This really inspired me to write the book, because I do think that we got to a stage in our life where we kind of given up. I mean, it's up here, and it's kind of, we blame ourselves that we are the stupid one, where in reality we should shift the whole direction towards the company starting to get its act in order. So that's the Ministry of Common Sense.
Yeah. Do you think it's got better or worse since the pandemic, since we've gone remote?
Worse. Much worse. Listen, I was on a flight the other day going from Copenhagen to Zurich, Switzerland. As I was sitting in the plane, then there was this announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board on Scandinavian Airlines. We regret to inform you that all lavatories in the front of the plane has been suspended. They're right now only available for the cabin crew. And then she continued to explain that there were certain procedures. Now, here's the good news, Chris. This is amazing. They have invented a new format of entertainment systems on airplanes now. Brand new, latest technology. It's called a contact tracing form. Brilliant. So you get this contact tracing form. The first question is, have you been in close proximity with anyone you know or don't know within the last 12 hours?
That's so stupid. Oh my God, you're on a plane.
This is getting worse, because in the name of COVID, we are using it as an excuse for everything. In fact, there is a term for that in Australia, which is called safety clutter. And it shows, according to a research study in Australia, that 65% of everything going on right now is wrapped into safety clutter. Safety clutter is an excuse that it makes you safer, but in reality, what the study found out is that in 65% of the cases, it's helping the person behind the scene to promote herself or himself. And this gives you an indication of how everything has shifted towards the wrong direction, right? And here's the issue. I'll be frank with you. We talk about the great resignation going on right now, how people are quitting their work, and quite often they don't even have an alternative work. Here's the reality. If my employer is a link, because I'm sitting on Zooms and team call all the day. Remember, we are working from 8 in the morning, back to back, and every slot is exactly 1 hour or 30 minutes. What happens is, if you happen to be ready, let's say after 90 minutes, God forbid, okay, then you feel like you're a little kid in school, sneaking out of the room because you just cannot leave this meeting after the time slot has expired, right? So we all sit there clinging on to these minutes. Toilet breaks, they're gone. Sorry,
They're gone now, yeah.
We don't need to go to the toilets anymore. That was back in the 80s, right? And what happens then is, at 6 p.m. in the night, you are so exhausted from this back-to-back that you throw yourself at the couch, and then it's time to do your work because you haven't had time to do it during the day. Now, the only relationship you have with the company is a link. And I don't need to tell you, there is nothing called company parties, nothing called walking to the meeting rooms, casual talk, or the water cooler moment. That emotional glue is gone, is wiped away. So when I click on a link, that's my only loyalty to my company. In the future, you're competing with 5 other links. That's different employees, meaning you become your own brand, meaning you become freelance. And that is the trend we're seeing in China now, big way, that folks in China have said, I realized during COVID that my employer didn't care about me. I'm starting up my own brand now because it's much safer in the end of the day and it's much more fun. So this is a serious issue. And if you add all this compliance crap on top of it, I'm out of here. And that's the reason why I thought writing this book right now would be the right thing to do, right?
Yeah, it is perfect timing in a good way, but also in an unfortunate way because of everything that's happening as well. I was having that conversation recently with the team actually, because you're right. If you think of any company you worked in beforehand, you didn't go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. You're right. No one, I don't know anyone that does that every day, hour meeting, one after another. But that time in between, the sort of water cooler moments you mentioned, going to lunch and with your team and after work drinks, just all of those things that kind of build that culture, that glue, like you're talking about amongst everyone, is gone. It's gone now.
It is gone. And so why is it gone? It's gone because we perceive productivity to be back to back with meetings. For one of our larger clients, one of the largest shipping companies in the world, we realized into the process that a lot of people are putting in fake meetings into the calendar.
No, really? Wow.
2 reasons. One is that they look busy. The other one is it blocks them for other people not booking their time so they can think. And this is where we are at right now. The productivity is perceived as having as many meetings as possible. And if I have half an hour, 45 minutes for myself, I kind of go into a panic situation because I feel I'm not wanted. Remember, I have no eye contact. I don't have that casual connection with my boss or whatever. So I increasingly feel a sense of anxiety. And that's the reason why we see the anxiety level goes up, because there's no way I can determine how well I'm doing in the company beside a number saying productivity through Zoom calls. So I think at the end of the day, what we'll have to do now is to do a kind of due diligence. I mean, if you go back to a computer and you do the defragmentation, you go through all the memory and you code the memory in a different way and it stores it in such a way that the computer is faster. Well, what is your defragmentation in your daily life? And what I would recommend you to do is to ask yourself to look at things you should remove, things you should improve, and things you should keep. Now, as you do that, you will realize that you probably only have a to-do list to work with as a tool. I'm working with what I call an on-to-do list. That's where I start to remove things. Because here's the issue. If we don't do that, we both take the politics and bureaucracy from before COVID-19.
And more on top.
Feels like it's 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we add another layer now, right? On top of it. And guess what? When we come back to work in whatever format it is, let's call it hybrid, there's another layer come on top. And here's the layer. The layer is this. People think, oh, we'll just go back to a hybrid model. No, you won't. Because I'll be sitting at work and now I need to have a meeting with Peter. Peter's working remote. Okay, so we get Peter in. Peter now have to synchronize his time with Marie, and everyone else have to be, because that's what we used to, we all connect immediately. That means people have to freedom at home, forget about it. You will be dictated by whatever calendar is running at work. So now you have another layer coming on top. It is branded with a word called freedom. Just like when the mobile phone was released back in the days, it said freedom. I don't think I know a single person calling it freedom anymore, right? And this is the same happening with hybrid work. So what is so important for companies to understand now is, do not do the mistake of saying to yourself as a boss, now we're going to pack people's calendars when they finally come into work to get the most use out of them. No, create a meeting-free zone. Create a place where you reflect, where you brainstorm, where you utilize the strength of human connection, and then take all the tedious work and put it into the remote work, where you can tick the boxes and where the value of connecting with people in real person is not as high. So you really need to rethink about how you draw people back to the office, else people won't go back, and suddenly the culture is collapsing.
Yeah. I was speaking with one of the HR executives over at Microsoft a few days ago at our conference. She said, Chris, I realized I was going in the office every day just to jump on a video call with my team that works remotely globally. It's like, why am I here? And she was doing that for years. She was like, well, I was basically doing what I'm doing now at home, but having to travel an hour every day to the office, and people were just fed up. And there was no intention behind why people were coming back to the office. And we fell prey to that. So my team comes in on a Monday, and we slowly fell back to having some people calling in remote and then scheduling the diaries and the teams. And then the whole point for us to come in was to collaborate. But that kind of we slowly crept back into the old way of working. And my teams mentioned it. If we're coming in, we need to come in to collaborate, not to sit here and jump on calls.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me about a strike which was going on in New City in London, where people were forced for 48 hours to find a new path to work. 2/3 of the tube was down. And after 48 hours, here's what happens. A research team was analyzing how much time people have saved, and they saved on average 6 to 7 minutes. So now we have this elegant conclusion. People were forced to change and they saved more time. But here comes the scary part. After 48 hours, 95% of the people bounced straight back to the default behavior. Only 5% stuck with the new time of behavior. And this is the issue. If we do not sit down and post-evaluate things and say these are the new guidelines for how we work, the entire company is going to take the worst of both worlds. It's not going to take the best of both worlds, because we don't have time to reset our life because we're so busy surviving. So you really need to do this due diligence in the end of the day, right?
Why is it then that companies become so entangled in their own issues and lose sight of that core purpose and the reason they started in the first place?
Well, it's very simple why. There's two guys which were smoking weeds in a dorm room some years ago, completely off their head. And then, of course, they shoot a photo of each other, post it online. The world goes crazy. Mom and dad hates them forever. So the day after, they say to each other, I wish we could retract those photos. Well, guess what? These two guys were the founders of Snapchat. Today is a $50 billion company.
Is that the story? I never knew that. That's so fascinating. I didn't know that.
It's a true story, yeah. It's a fascinating story. So here's the issue. Why am I telling this story? Because they felt the same pain as everyone else in the world having done the same felt. And that's called empathy. The ability to put yourself in the shoes of another person and feel what that person is feeling. Now remember one thing, empathy is slowly fading away in our society. You and I have never met. We met through a screen. I'm not able to look you in the eyes and really see or feel what's going on. And what happens is that empathy is destroyed across multiple points of our lives. That's the reason why people feel a sense of anxiety, because from a rational point of view, in our brains, I feel I met you. I feel I'm together with people every day. But as I said the other day, I feel I'm in touch with the entire world every day, but I never really feel it. And that is what's happening with the loss of empathy. In fact, a recent study shows, that was made by college students in the United States over 10 years, it shows that empathy levels have halved over the last decade among young people. So coming back to the Snapchat example, they felt empathy. Empathy also equals common sense. Common sense is to see the same point of view from multiple point of view, right? So you suddenly have a perspective on things. And as this is happening, the company is lean. Everyone takes each other's role. Everyone works together because they have a shared purpose. But as the company grows older, the lawyers move in. Compliance folks moves in. And I like compliance, don't get me wrong. They have a role. But all these folks move into the game. And what happens is that suddenly the founders leave. And they were the ones feeling the sense of empathy. And all the new people coming into the company didn't feel it the same way. So their purpose is more to protect their jobs. That means they start to see the world from inside out rather than outside in. And that shift means that suddenly, as you put red tape everywhere to protect things, you lose contact with reality. You lose contact with the consumers and customers, which actually are the ones paying your salary. And as that happens, suddenly common sense disappears and is converted into nonsense. And that's the reason why both employees internally feel stressed. It's also the reason why customers increasingly feel just frustrated about interacting with a company or with a brand, right?
Well, is it more so common when you speak to these large companies that that's the case?
Well, I would say that there is
the vast majority
between companies, if they have three different factors in mind. One is the size of the company. The more layers, reporting layers you have, the more markets you're dealing with, or the more people which are involved, the more you will go down the nonsense track. The second thing is how old the company is. Older companies have built up more bureaucracy than the newer ones. And I would also say the last thing comes down to true leadership. And leadership is increasingly that leaders need to show a sense of vulnerability. It's very clear with all sorts of studies now showing that leaders which are able to say, I don't have the answer here, but I have a great team which can help me to create the answer. A person which shows a human side and through that also shows a sense of empathy, also for some reason is able to navigate going down the rabbit hole of nonsense. But you know how it is. When you're busy growing a company, it's super difficult to handle all those three factors. And that's where most companies, I mean, we're talking about 95% of companies falling into that trap.
And now more than ever, if you don't have an organization that can innovate quickly, move fast, you're not going to survive very long, are you? In the current climate?
No, you're not. No, you're not. And this is what's so fundamentally different. I think it's fair to say that in the old days, you wanted to produce things, at a good quality, relatively good quality, and make sure you could scale it. Today, the factors of what industrialization is all about, if that word at all is relevant to use today, it's all about being flexible instead, nimble, and you're adapting very quickly to things. That's a fundamentally different skill set. I remember many years ago when I was visiting Lego. I was a huge fan when I was a kid at Lego, and I visited the Lego R&D lab as a 12-year-old because they offered me a job in there. It's a long story why they did it, but I got a job offer at Lego, which is like Villa Wonka chocolate factory type
I bet,
of story,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
You imagine, right? So I came into Lego in the R&D lab as the first kid ever, and I remember the head of R&D said to me, "This is our new Lego train." And this train was amazing. It was running. Wow! I want one of those, I said to him. And I said, "When can I buy it?" He said, "In 5 years from now."
Wow.
I looked at him and I said, "How can you predict 5 years ahead in time?" Because we are Lego. Well, Lego, they changed their mind very quickly. In fact, they're almost going bankrupt because they're not able to adapt to change that quickly. And it's first now when you have the Saras of the world, which are adopting extraordinarily quickly, that the classic old companies have been forced to do it. So we really have, it's a little bit like a Swiss clockwork. If you go to Switzerland, all the wheels are going in the right direction and the clock can tick away. But if you ask people in Switzerland to redesign the whole clock, they will go into panic. And that's a little bit what we're seeing happening right now with companies. They have to be completely reset around new criteria. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are not prepared to do it. That's what we call the immune system. That's where bureaucracy comes in.
What are some practical steps they can take immediately to sort of remove unproductive BS and unblock that innovation?
I think the most important thing you have to do is to understand the immune system in an organization. The immune system is what I define as a defense mechanism for change. And even though most people will say, I love change, most people hate change because change is you steering towards the unknown. And we don't really like that anymore. That's the reason why there's so much anxiety in the world, because we don't know what tomorrow brings. So what you have to do is to have a principle in your mind. And let me just try to illustrate that principle in a simple way. Some years ago, there was a study conducted with chickens. They were stuck into a cage, and they were in the cage for about half a year. And one day, these poor chickens were let out on the beautiful green grass, and the sun was shining, and the birds were singing. And guess what happened, Chris?
They went back in the cage?
And they went out, and straight after again, they went back into the chicken cage again after 30 seconds. And I call that the chicken cage syndrome. And here's the trick to all that stuff, because I'm just going to do an illustration and a test with you. And this is the ultimate test to see if you actually read my book or not, right? This is the type of interview you as an interviewer actually hate. So I'm going to be really nice to you, but let's see. Here is 4 chicken cages from the top, seen from the top. They're sort of around a little square now. Now, if you imagine you have chicken A sitting here, and we want to make sure that chicken A is going out of the chicken cage, right? Then my question to you is, where would you place the corn if you wanted to get the chicken out of this cage? Where would you place it? Would you place it in the center? Would you place it wherever? It's up to you to get the chicken out.
So you're saying where would I put it to get the chicken out? Oh, I feel like this is a trick question now. It seems too obvious, the answer.
No, you can answer anything.
I'll put it in the middle.
In the middle?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try to simulate you are chicken now. You are now chicken A, you're looking out. This corn is, I tell you, this is far away. It's in the middle of that square. Really, there's a lot of things going on out there. And so the first thing you'll do is to ask yourself, is my KPIs, are they supporting this new change in the organization? No, they're not. And the second thing you're going to say is, what if my manager will be fired? He has all these change ideas and I'll look like an idiot. So you are now going to do another trick. You're going to look at chicken B, right? You're going to see what chicken B is doing. Well, guess what chicken B is doing? Chicken B is looking at you. You're not doing anything, and chicken B is not doing anything, and chicken C is looking at chicken B and B and A and B and C. Everyone is looking at everyone. And the whole main conclusion is very simple. They're all going straight back into the cage again.
Yeah.
So that was the wrong answer. Which is great that you're raising it, because then, of course, what is the right answer? Well, the same studies now, time after time, are showing that if I place the corn straight outside the chicken cage, well, I can just take that little piece of sexy corn, I can eat it. The other chickens are looking at me saying, "My God, why don't I do it?" And you use sense of a peer pressure, but you also use another thing, which is an instant gratification. And remember, in our world today, we have no patience whatsoever. Now, 5-year plan, we have the 2035 plan. I don't even know if I'm alive. At that stage, we've done the whole alphabet with COVID, right? We're up to COVID X, right? At the end of the day. At this stage, I just can't relate to it. We've had 5 CEOs and 22 managers. So I want to have an instant gratification generation. And this is what I call a 90 days intervention. This is small, bite-sized changes I'm making in the organization which have an immediate impact on what's going on. So my answer to your question is, you need to find a little friction. A friction in your department, let's say. One where it's really frustrating, but it's also a friction where, you know, if you get everyone with you in that department, you don't need to have headquarters access, you don't need to do this and that. It's in your department's power. If you get your heads together, you know you can fix it. You sit down and you fix it with a 90-day intervention. Stick to the back. And as you've done it after 90 days, you celebrate the hell out of it. And you say, whoa, right? And everyone's looking right, and they say, my God, we did it, right? And then what happens is you place another corn, and the corn, of course, is going further and further towards that piece of corn you placed originally in the center, right? And as that happens, what happens is that you slowly are creating a behavioral transformation. Because in the end of the day, back to the tube, that 95% are going back to the tube, the old path, or in this case, the chicken cage. You cannot make changes happening by dictating them, nor by giving people a mandate, because people will not take the mandate. You need to do it in small, bite-sized changes where you have sort of a movement driving it. So that is really the answer to how to slowly tie up that issue. And the Minister of Common Sense, the book and the title is not a coincidence, because we actually did start up a real Ministry of Common Sense in Standard Chartered Bank in the UK. And
amazing.
Because they had too much compliance. So we literally established the department with the sheer purpose of getting rid of BS. And it worked.
I love that.
So that's the answer, right?
That's incredible. Well, look, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's a real pleasure, and there's so much to think about. And I think now more than ever, this needs to be top of mind for everyone and the leaders. But I love the analogies as well, and thanks for doing the demonstration, even though I got it wrong as well. But I'm sure most people will, right? So I think probably a good learning moment for everyone. But before I let you go, where can people grab a copy of the book, connect with you if they want to learn more? What's the best places?
Well, listen, it's very simple. You can, of course, buy it on Amazon, but you can also go into martinlindstrom.com. There you will find the book. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, we have a weekly show like you, where we bring in the most amazing people from the planet, business leaders and high-level thinkers, to talk about this very topic, to get rid of all this BS and replace it with common sense, because common sense is in an existential crisis right now, and sadly common sense is not that common. Yeah, amazing. Well, look, thanks for coming on the show, and I look forward to doing it again soon, but all the best until next week. Take care. Bye for now. Thanks.